Obviously, starting the Big Ten with 3 out of 4 on the road, we had hoped to at least get the record even at the very minimum, and had our opportunities. I think on Thursday at Penn State, didn't get off to the best start, but found our way and won the first quarter, and stayed within striking distance through the next two, and put ourselves, especially on the road in the Big Ten, a 2-point game going in the fourth quarter, and again, we're not able to finish that game off. And yesterday we played, arguably the best post player in the country, the leading scorer in the country, and I thought our kids did a great job. We limited, Megan Gustafson to 4 field goal attempts, no free throws in the first half. And Imani Lewis was really good for us as a freshman. I think starting to feel a little bit more what the level is in the Big Ten. We just, again, Gustafson, you're going to try to limit her. She's going to touch the ball probably 40 times a game. She came out, and they were able to get her the ball in more positions to be able to be successful. I thought our kids competed hard and stuck to our game plan, especially in transition. We just have to be able to score the ball better, and again, get the defense has to keep teams in the low 60s. Each of the losses, teams are sitting right at 71. And again, I think there are a lot of good things to pull out last night. We just need to make sure we need to have that secondary and tertiary score. And part of the reason we're not able to have that is bouts with turnovers. That was a big part of the third quarter yesterday. We had 7 turnovers at halftime, and I think we had 6 in the third quarter. And we obviously, the last time I checked, you can never score off a turnover. So it's good. There are definitely things that are very fixable, and I think you saw the disappointment in our kids. I didn't question, like I said, the effort, but the ability to get back and get practice time in and get ourselves ready, obviously, for a very good Indiana team on Sunday.
Questions? Dennis.
You mentioned Imani, who's already pretty much established herself among the top group of freshmen in the conference. What does she improve the most in from the start this year, and what does she have to do to take it to another level over the next 3.5 years?
Yeah, I think like any freshman, consistency, and understanding how the different post players are in our league, and understanding, I think coming off the Penn State game of what her advantage is in the post. Certain people she's able to bring outside, and whether it's put the ball on the ground or they're worried about the drive and step into her jumper. I think like most freshmen, the defensive end is the hardest piece of the puzzle. And again, I think she has seen in 4 games 4 very different types of post players. Starting with Annalise Lemke and Taye Bello, and then you get Ariana Harris, who can jump over top of the backboard, and then Penn State has some kids that are probably outweigh Imani by 50 to 60 pounds, and you get last night obviously probably the most efficient post player in the Big Ten in the last 5 to 7 years, and again, knowing that she's got to guard those people and how she can use her abilities to be able to stop them. I thought last night rebounding the ball, not just because what it was on the stat sheet, but just the contact she made and kept not only Gustafson but Hannah Stewart off the glass. But again, I think it's one thing we've loved about her from the very beginning of recruiting her is that competitive level. And again, I thought last night she was just extremely aggressive. People are starting to take away certain things. She's starting to have a better feel of what to come back with. And again, I think we've got to be able to understand how to play off of her. And again, she's going to demand more attention. Other people have to be able to, put themselves and we've got to put them in a position that they can be successful. But again, I think last night, she continued to attack. She was good early. We moved her around a little bit, obviously, to get, Megan Gustafson out of the lane. And she really helped our team, I thought. But as far as going forward, it's understanding that every day in practice, that consistency as well.
Dennis?
Free throw shooting's been an issue pretty much all year, and last night wouldn't have made a difference in the score, in the outcome probably, but when you're on the edge of games, is that just who you are? Is there hope that
I don't think it is, because we inside of practice, outside of practice, we're charting it all, on a given day when our kids are shooting 100 free throws, we are in the high 70s to low 80s, and obviously there's an adrenaline in a game situation. We're shooting them when we're tired in practice. We're shooting them, right after we've done scrimmaging. To me, concentration, is a part of this, and understanding. Again, especially with no 1-and-1 in our game right now, unless it's an and one, you're stepping into a situation where we've got two chances, and it's unacceptable, and we've got to obviously build it in even more, and be able to do it and simulate it even more with pressure. But top to bottom, you can't shoot free throws the way that we're shooting them, and like you said, does it make a difference, obviously, when there's 10 missed free throws and you lose a game by more than 10? But when you're fighting and clawing to get back into a game and you get it to a 3-possession game and you get 2 free throws, you don't come away with anything, you're not putting any pressure on the other team again. Maybe you get it down to 2 possessions. Now all of a sudden the other team's feeling a little bit tight. And not just obviously it affected us in Arkansas, and you look at it cost you games too. But one is the ability to build. You can't not have that ability to be able to get there because you're worried about not making them.
Brian.
After the game last night, you mentioned turnovers were a problem, your point guard specifically. So as a coach, you've been doing this for a long time. How do you handle that with your point guard where you don't want to tear her down, but you also need to prove a point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the interesting, as we look over the stats before last night, Kendra Van Leeuwen is 1 assist away from her total from last year, and she's played in half the amount of games. And so obviously she's put people in positions to be successful. As we looked at those, you want to talk about, in the game, what she's seeing. And again, I think we clip every post feed. We want to show them not only the turnovers, but if they're missing certain areas. And, I think some of ours last night are trying to do too much. Trying to make up in a play and seeing, just very much like a progression for a football quarterback. If this is not completely open, what's the second option? What's the third option? And understanding that, I think Iowa's a great team to make that example against, because here's a team that averages 20 assists a game. And obviously they have a great player, but they're all unselfish, but they all work really hard on giving themselves the best angle. They work 2 and 3 times to make the best decision, and not just coming off the ball with one hand or trying to lead somebody into a situation where it's an all or nothing type of play. I think we've got to be able to make those simple plays, and I think it starts with a lot with film study. And again, I think Kendra and Naya and Diamond are all kids that are want to be able to see that, make that right play. But sometimes the right play, Brian, is to make the easier pass and move on to the next segment of your offense.
Dennis.
You made a little lineup adjustment yesterday with Suzanne starting. Was that just trying to get another offensive player, another scorer on the floor early? Was it a matchup thing? You mentioned trying to get that secondary and third. Sometimes generally been able to get 2 scorers. It's that third. Is that what your effort was?
No, so Naya did not practice the 2 days before with an upper body injury, and she was able to go through shoot around. But I just think with the complexity of the game plan, we felt like we had to see even in warm-ups how she was going to be. And Sue had kind of jumped in, knowing obviously with Naya not practicing for 2 days. And coming off of where we, looked at and said then, okay, if Naya can't start, what's that next option? And as you mentioned, trying to find somebody that could stretch the defense a little bit. So we went into, to see how Naya was and shoot around, and she felt better. And obviously she still was able to play 24, 25 minutes yesterday. But, even to start the second half, we're obviously really big on efficiency numbers. And, that group had the best efficiency with the starters, so we stayed with that lineup to start the second half. Obviously, it changes the rotation, but it was nothing to do with Naya's play or trying to just initially add a score. It was, I just felt like with missing those 2 days of practice, it was really key. We had somebody that had gone through the reps, especially on the defensive end.
Dennis.
You're just 12 hours or so away from your last game, but Indiana coming in here, they've lost from last year, sort of the face of their program from the last couple of years, and then Cahill along with Buss. And yet they've seemed to not miss a step here as they moved on. How are they the same? How are they different?
Well, we've seen them from early on because we were fortunate. Our second game was Milwaukee, and they had opened with Milwaukee, and we knew going into the season that to have two transfers who sat out, who were very similar in skill sets to Buss and Cahill and Allie Patberg and Brianna Weiss. And you can just see, even from watching that game to as it's gotten closer here into the conference play, how those two have stepped into those roles. Allie Patberg's one of the top 5 scorers in the league. Brianna Weiss is averaging 14, 15 points a game. But also you have a maturation of somebody like a Jalen Penn, who's really stepped into that role as a third scorer. And again, they're not a team that necessarily is very, very deep. They're going to play 8 people, but Terry's a terrific coach, and obviously they've figured out what's made them successful and tough man-to-man defense, understanding the ball's in Patberg's hands, and they run a lot of really good actions. But you could see the maturity of those kids that are returning, and obviously when you have 2 transfers that were – Allie Patberg, I knew really well. She committed really early at Notre Dame, made visits when I was still there. Is a really talented kid there were a lot of talented kids at Notre Dame. And I think she grew from that experience of going head-to-head against them. She sat out a year of injury and then played a year before she transferred. And Brianna Weiss is somebody that was, a double-digit scorer in the ACC before she transferred to Indiana. So their chemistry is really good, obviously, to start off the Big Ten season, to get a road win in overtime, and then to be able to beat, a very good Michigan State team. They come in with a lot of momentum. We'll see them on Thursday night on TV as they play at Ohio State. But the fact to have them in the Kohl Center and to build off what we've been able to do at home this year is really, really important.